Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Arak, StarrEagle, the modern-day minstrel, and the poetic peacemaker back coming at you from Douglas College, my old alma mater in New Westminster, British Columbia. What a beautiful town. Just finishing off my rather epic endorsement of Bernie Sanders, Mr. Bernie Sanders for President of the United States of America. As you know about myself, if anyone that knows me, something that's very near and dear to my heart is the cause of peace. And, you know, I've always been a believer in diplomacy and negotiation. I think that's something that's very, very important in this world where there's hostile, aggressive warfare and terrorism. And what Bernie has to say about that, he says, as everybody knows, we live in a difficult and dangerous world. There are people out there who want to do us harm, quite rightly. I mean, you have many terrorist groups. As president, I will defend this nation, but I will do it responsibly. And he goes on to say, quoting him here, as a member of Congress, I voted against the war in Iraq, and that was the right vote. I'm vigorously opposed to an endless war in the Middle East, a war which is most unwise and unnecessary. We must be vigorous in combating terrorism and defeating ISIS, but we should not have to bear that burden alone. We must be part of an international coalition led by Muslim nations that can not only defeat ISIS, but begin the process of creating conditions for a lasting peace. Well, like I said, that's a cause that I've long to believe in, folks. And when I think about it, a lot of these regime changes, these destabilizing regime changes, really haven't yielded peace. Really what they've done is kill a whole lot more innocent people. You know, putting a lot of innocent people in tombs and body bags and morgues and hospitals and coffins and people's limbs getting blown off. And basically you have a situation where and terrorists use this as propaganda, folks. Basically, with every innocent person that's put in a coffin, the terrorists are just using that for propaganda. And when, you know, there's orphans being created, children mourning their parents, very sad situation, something that always breaks my heart. And perhaps even worse, you could argue, parents mourning their children, you know, when they're bereft of their children for life. You know, and they're cradling their little children in their arms, and they're dying and they're dead. It's a terrible thing, and of course widows and widowers, just innocent old men, women, and children having bombs dropped on them. And like I said, that goes towards you know, the terrorists using that as propaganda. And certainly, as you saw with Iraq, when they went into Iraq, Bernie made the right decision there. I rightly support Bernie on that. And I think a lot of us at the time, you know, we were wondering, is there weapons of mass destruction? And there was, of course, as we well know by now, there was no weapons of mass destruction. You know, they were basically at the point where they weren't an imminent threat, or were not an immediate threat, or a clear and present danger. And that war really, it turned into an invasion and an occupation. We were not hailed as liberators nor as heroes. Unfortunately and sadly, we were considered to be invaders and conquerors and occupiers, and it just rather snowballed. You know, one domino hit another, and out of that came ISIS. And when they disbanded the Iraqi army, and they had a lot of jobs, or they had no jobs but a lot of guns, and they were not involved in the political process, and they were disaffected. You know, ended up flocking towards basically contingencies of Al-Qaeda, and they formed ISIS. And that's what we're left with all these destabilizing regime changes, creating power vacuums. And you have more insurgencies, you have more militias, you have more death squads, and things of that nature. And as I said, it just snowballs. And it's really, you know, one domino hits another, and you're looking at more sectarian strife, tribal conflict and violence, and more civil wars in that power vacuum. So we've got to be very careful, you know, and I think that's basically what Bernie's saying is, you know, as a president, he wouldn't, he would use force to defend us, but war, I believe that, you know, he has the same thoughts as I do on that. War should be the last resort on the table. It should literally be the last resort on the table. And it shouldn't be the first resort, and it certainly shouldn't be the only resort. When we basically jump the gun, we literally are jumping the gun. And there's unforeseen consequences to that. So he's a person that I would trust, you know, certainly with a nuclear launch code, but also as a commander-in-chief of the United States, that he would only use force judiciously and prudently and cautiously and logically and rationally in the same manner. And we certainly haven't seen that from past presidents, or past rulers or leaders or governors or elected officials. When they've rushed to war and they don't have an exit strategy. Bernie seems to me to be a very, very prudent man, and I appreciate that about him. I would like to say that I definitely appreciate that about him, and he seems like a man after my own heart, and a man that would be interested in waging peace. And I believe Jimmy Carter, another great president, actually used that term. Someone that would, an aspirational pacifist, someone that would wage peace and work for peace, prepare for peace, but always be ready for war, I suppose, as the very last resort. Someone that would plant the seeds for that and strive for that, work hard for peace. And I've always long believed in presidents, like I said, that only use war as the last resort, force as the last resort, but they're interested in using the channels of diplomacy and negotiation to resolve crisis and conflicts and to prevent warfare. And of course, working to build détente and to resolve things with truces and the ceasefires, and basically aiming at peaceful solutions, peaceful resolutions, and peaceful methods. Got some college kids in the background there, And Bernie seems like a guy that'd be interested in brokering for peace, in forging, the necessary, I guess, preparations, if you will, for peace agreements and peace arrangements and peace settlements. So I firmly believe in my heart he's someone that we can trust as commander-in-chief, in charge of the Army and the military, the Air Force and Navy SEALs, the Marines and whatnot. And, just something personal, what I would like to say, if we're really serious about combating these terrorists, I don't believe that creating the conditions for them is the way to go. And like I said, that's destabilizing countries with regime changes and all these invasions and conquering and occupations and dropping a whole bunch of bombs and innocent people, as I've said. Like I said, it gets used for propaganda and things of that nature. So we live in a dangerous world, and why make it more dangerous? As I said, I believe that Bernie is someone that I could trust, and I feel that we could trust if we're really interested in peace, and I believe we should want peace and not war. And it's someone that is going to be very, very logical in his use of force. And, there's not much more to be said on that, but, I believe that he's someone that we can trust. So really, I've agreed with him on pretty much everything. And, he definitely has my endorsement, and I think he's the right man for the economy. I like his ideas of free college for all, of basically the government, offering education to people. It's definitely something that I agree with. The government funding education better, and of course universal health care, which is something that we have in Canada too. Going back to the college thing, like I said, I think it's a great idea. I don't feel that money should get in the way of people getting a good education, the youth getting a good education, preparing for the future so they can realize their hopes and dreams. And that way they have better careers, they have better jobs, and of course it feeds back into the economy, with taxes, and of course, people basically, being gainfully employed, doing things that they've always wanted to do. So I think that Bernie has a very good idea when he talks about having free education, and of course healthcare. Like I said, that's the number one. It's one of the number one reasons why I support him. Being a Canadian, I think of our system. I mentioned it earlier, but no matter who the people are, whether they're rich or they're poor, they do deserve surgery, they deserve treatment, they deserve medicine, and the sick deserve to be healed. He wants to do something in regards to cleaning up our environment and reversing climate change. Just to recap, and certainly, if we take a look at how fossil fuels, internal combustion engine, and that sort of thing. Really, I mean, we're at a tipping point. We're at a crisis point where we need to transition. We really do need to transition to cleaner, safer, better, renewable alternative energy that's not going to be releasing these dangerous and dirty emissions, these carbon emissions, CO2, and greenhouse gases into our precious, pristine environment, which is harmful to human life as well, and as plant and animal life and everything. And I really feel strongly, as you know, he's pointed out, that we do need. He talks about wind and solar and geothermal and biomass. We need to start transitioning to that. Money can actually be made in that too, and we really got to get off the dirty fossil fuels. And you know, certainly there's probably going to be a lot of resistance to him on Bernie Sanders in that one, because certainly coal is probably the most deadly, and I feel that should go, period. But we need to transition from the oil and gas, and hopefully Bernie will make some inroads, but hopefully, you know, there won't be such resistance on that where he can't get something done. You know, where we can transition away from oil and gas, which actually contributes to foreign wars as well as it's harmful for the environment. You know, and I just appreciate, honestly, I appreciate Bernie's heart for the poor. And really the fact is, you know, when you've got these large corporations and they're outsourcing jobs and they're downsizing and they're privatizing and making things hard for the common man, for the middle class as well as the poor and the homeless, where's the love for them? And the large corporations, they're getting government kickbacks, there's corporate bonuses, there's fraud, they're putting people in debt, some of them. And yeah, outsourcing jobs and everything, it's just a hellacious situation, folks. And when they have tax shelters overseas, you know, tax sanctuaries and tax shelters and tax havens overseas, and they're avoiding paying their fair share. You know, that's something I very much agree with Bernie Sanders on. So just, you know, I've reviewed a few things here. We do need to address wealth and income inequality. It isn't a good situation when the wealthy are getting, you know, absolutely wealthier and more powerful. The elite, the powerful, are getting more powerful. And it really is a sliding scale, and the rich are getting richer, and middle class are becoming poor, and the poor are becoming homeless, and the homeless people are dying. They're sliding literally into the drain. And I agree with Bernie, we really got to invest in things like social programs, essential services, infrastructure, and things of that nature. You know, so I am a believer in his democratic socialism, and I've always been a liberal and a progressive and a democratic socialist. So it's a lot of things. You know, recapping it, women certainly should get paid more in the workforce, and workers should get paid more, period. You know, they're slaving to the grind, and you know, they're getting less for their efforts, for their hard work. And we certainly do need to be creating more jobs for the middle class, and as I said, raising wages, reforming Wall Street. He's right, if these banks are too big to fail, really they are too big to exist. I mean, you had Teddy Roosevelt that broke up the big banks when they were becoming too corrupt, and they were just hoarding all this power, and people are starving, and you know, people are losing their homes, losing their jobs. We really do need to address the wealth and income inequality in America and pretty much all over. So, you know, there's just reviewing all of his policies, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I'm happy to report that I definitely happy and elated to report that I personally feel that Bernie Sanders would be a great president, and he's someone that I would be very proud to have as President of the United States of America. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm not going to shout it in here, but you know, if you know me, you know my catchphrase. Ladies and gentlemen, never forget, saga continues. The eagle has landed, and feel the burn. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Fireside chat over.